Okay, let's look at more closely on management of costs and revenue. As far as costs are concerned, there are two major types of costs, as all of us know: capital costs and operating expenses. Capital costs are basically the investments that are made in, let's say construction of tube well, jack well, pump, overhead tank, pipeline, etc. These costs are recognized over a period of time. They may have a life of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, and so on. So there may be, of course, different lifespan for different capital cost items as well. So the capital cost aligns with the matching principle, ensuring expenses match with the periods in which the assets generates the revenue. So if they are actually having 25 years of lifespan, then we need to spread that cost across 25 years. That's what it means, matching principles. And operating expenses are the regular ongoing costs incurred to maintain its day-to-day operations, which includes the cost of running the infrastructure setup. These expenses are recurring and occur frequently, such as salaries, wages, electricity bills, and so on. So operating expenses are essential for continuous functioning and are immediately expensed. So irrespective of whether you are operator or not, the capital cost will be there. Whereas, if you are not operating, that operating expenses will not be there. So that's the difference, and we will see how to take care of them in cost computation. So it's important to understand the full cost of servicing water delivery, to examine the component of costs and how to recover them. For this purpose, the capital cost needs to be computed for each year to combine it with the operation and maintenance cost to arrive at the full cost. Now, in order to compute the capital cost for each year, one can use the depreciation method or amortization methods. Depreciation alone cannot take care of the full fixed cost, as it only accounts for the book value of the capital cost. So along with the capital cost, there is an opportunity cost, because if you just think of situation where you are investing 10 lakhs of rupees. So if you had put it in a fixed deposit, you would have got maybe 6% interest. So therefore, at the end of 25 years, you not only have this 10 lakhs as a principal amount, but also the interest accumulated over the 25 years period. So therefore, one needs to look at that aspect of opportunity cost. That's basically the interest earned on this investment while calculating our fixed cost, for the system. So therefore, we look at appropriate ways of doing it, and that's what the time value of money is, in the sense that today's rupee is not same as tomorrow's rupees, and it is not same as what yesterday it was. So there is a inflation component in the money value. So we need to take that into account, and it can be taken care of by either compounding or discounting. So we would like to compound it if we want to find out the time value of money over multiple periods into the future, where interest rate is added to the original amount, and discounting is focuses on the present value of the money by considering the current worth of future cash flows. So these are the two methods to find out either today's worth of future cash flows, or the end value of all the cash flows that are happening, or the returns that are happening. So we need to keep this in mind, in the sense that when we are talking about 25 years period and so on, we need to adequately compensate for the inflation that's going to be there. So one way to think about is, let's say if you want to replace this, the capital that is invested after 25 years, after its lifetime, then what will be the cost? So it's not, let's say if you have invested 10 lakhs, it's not going to be 10 lakhs after 25 years. It will be much more than that, because all the inflation being added and so on. So therefore, how do we really come up with that cost, and therefore, how do we allocate them, for each year? So this is what the amortization can do. So where, one can use this formula for calculating what should be the average annual amortized cost. So let's say if E is the annual average amortized cost, P is the amount that is invested, R is the rate of interest, usually risk-free rate of interest, something like a fixed deposit interest rate and so on. And N is the number of years, for, of course, it could be months, years, and so on, number of periods. So which is basically, if you are talking about 25 years as the lifespan, so N will be 25 years. So if we know the investment cost, and of course, if we assume a interest rate, or the interest rate that prevails at a particular time, let's say if you take fixed deposit rate, it will be about, let's say, 6% or so. Then we can compute the annual amortized cost with this formula. So that would help us in looking at what portion of the investment cost, or what is the implication of the investment cost on annual fixed cost, or how do we come up with annual fixed cost from the investment that is made. So to the approaches that are used to recover costs are, one is of course full cost recovery, that is both fixed and variable cost, or operational expenditure, or at least the minimum threshold of recovering the operational and maintenance cost. So yesterday we were also talking about, at the initial stage, you might want to look at only the operational maintenance cost, but over a period of time, you need to really think about recovering the full cost, because that helps in really, taking care of any repair and replacement that's going to come in the future periods of time. So in order to calculate this, we can also look at what units are we using. So that means cost per watt, cost per, what kind of a unit. So we can look at cost per kiloliter of water supplied, or we can also look at, cost per household. So the water supplied to household, number of households can be used as a unit, and therefore, we can compute what is the unit cost of, let's say, unit operational cost as well as unit fixed cost, and then we can put it together to get total fixed cost. So therefore, the steps in computing the costs are, one is classifying the cost into capital expenditure and operating expenditure. And annual operating cost is the sum of all the operating and maintenance costs incurred in a year. So usually in a DPR preparation, we do have these mentioned in the DPR, and therefore, that serves as a basis for which, we can calculate the cost. So then we calculate the annualized fixed cost, the formula I just, explained. So using the formula, we can calculate the annualized fixed cost. So as we need to assume a risk-free interest rate, generally sort of acceptable in the economy. So let's say for our purpose, we can say, an inflation rate of about 6% or so. So that would be useful. That would be hopefully adequate for compensating any price changes that would happen, on the fixed cost. So then we can calculate the annual total cost, which is annual fixed cost plus annual operating cost. So once we have that, then we can look at, what is the annual total cost per kiloliter, which is annual total cost divided by the estimated annual supply of water in kiloliter, depending on, what you assume in terms of, number of people and number of liters of water that you want to supply, the LPCD liters per capita per day. It could be 55 liters as JGM actually specifies. In some state we have seen earlier it was 40 liters, and in some places we have seen, people also say, okay, 55 is not adequate, maybe 70 liters and so on. So depending on that, you can actually calculate the annual total cost per kiloliter. Then calculating the annual total cost or total operating cost per kiloliters, so we take only the annual operating cost and divide it by the estimated annual supply of water in kiloliters. Then if you use the unit as the households, then we can calculate the annual total cost per household, which is annual total cost divided by total number of households served in the habitation. So similarly, we can also look at, annual operating cost per household, which is, annual operating cost divided by the total number of households. So fixed cost per kiloliter and per household can be obtained by subtracting the operating cost from the total cost. Again, monthly average total and fixed and operating cost can be calculated by dividing the annual total cost, annual fixed cost, and annual operating cost, respectively, by 12. So, for each month, cost can also be calculated so that, it serves as a good guide to understand whether we are covering the cost or not, or which cost are we really covering, whether are we covering the operational cost or are we covering the total cost, and so on. So, while calculating this, charge, the water charge, you may also take into account, the revenue sources, the other revenue sources apart from the user charges. There may be some, other revenue sources such as the government grant, like 15th Finance Commission grant and so on, available to the panchayats, which can be spent on the Swachh Bharat mission as well as Jal Jeevan mission. So the amount can be utilized, this amount can be deducted from the total cost while calculating the per unit charge that has to be levied on individual household or on a per kiloliter basis. You may, the BWSC may also have sometimes the corpus fund created, and the interest accumulated on the corpus fund can also be similarly deducted in order to look at what is the net cost and then calculate the unit cost. So these costs help us in looking at, especially charging the flat rate or a volumetric basis. So if you calculate the cost per household, then, it's basically a flat rate, pricing that we are following. Whereas if you calculate the cost per kiloliter, that helps us to charge on a volumetric basis. So, one can, of course, do both calculation and, of course, use appropriate cost unit while charging individual households. So I will just illustrate with an example, so let's say, as we discussed earlier, the Jal Jeevan Mission has the single village scheme, multi-village scheme, which is also along with the in-village distribution system. We can, in case of MVS, IVDS, that is multi-village scheme, and IVDS system, the unit cost is computed at the MVS level as well as at the individual level. While MVS costs are directly relevant to the concerned IVDS because that's what the cost of water, getting water at the IVDS level. The extent of burden depends on the state government policy because, the MVS part of it, whether total cost of MVS or the fixed cost of MVS should be borne by government or not is a question that the government has to clarify so that it makes it easier for coming up with the cost that needs to be charged to individual households. So if the government may have a policy to subsidize a partial or full cost of the MVS. So we take an example of MVS. This is Gokarn in Uttara Kannada districts of Karnataka state. So where they get water from Gangavati river and, they source it. They have a jack well about 17 kilometers away from the plant, the master balancing reservoir and treatment plant. So from there, they supply water to currently to 6 gram panchayats. So through these blue distribution lines. So this example we will take, and this is the map of it. These are the villages and gram panchayats where the water is supplied. And so we can, if you look at the fixed cost component, so there are these different components like headworks and so on, as well as pipeline, mechanical and electrical works, feeder lines and so on. So then there is some distribution costs. So all of them put together is about 47 crores, 50 lakhs, 49,408. So that is the total fixed cost. And then the design life of fixed infrastructure is 25 years. So if you just divide it by, if you divide the total fixed cost by 25 years, just to get a feel of what the extent of money that is spent. So we see that this is 1 crore 90 lakhs, 1,976 rupees. But if you calculate in, amortized cost, per annum, so this will be 3 crore 71 lakhs 61,556. See, by incorporating the interest rate and finding out the amortization cost, then this is what we would get. Of course, from here one can also look at what is the monthly cost, which is about 30 lakhs 96,796. See, the operation and maintenance cost for MVS includes the establishment charges, electricity charges, maintenance cost of civil works, and so on. I will just, these are, for the Gokarn system, these are the different cost items. You must be familiar with it, so therefore, the annual operation and maintenance cost is actually 1 crore 30 lakhs 74,227, and therefore the monthly operation and maintenance cost is 10 lakhs 89,519, and therefore if you add this to the annual fixed cost that we have computed just now, so this is what you will get total cost. Annual total cost is 5 crore 2 lakhs 35,783. And one can also get the monthly cost, which is 41 lakhs 86,315. So the operational cost per kiloliter is determined by dividing the annual operations cost by annual demand for water in kiloliters. So similarly, the total cost is per kiloliter is determined And of course, one can also do the same thing for the per household basis as well, as we discussed a little earlier. Okay, so monthly total cost or operating costs can be obtained by dividing by 12. So the annual cost, again, as we said, is deducted from the amount of total water charges levied per year for the total number of households, which reflects whether there is a surplus or a deficit over the total cost. The one can also calculate the extent of surplus and deficit. So the operational cost per kiloliter is, so this is what the population, total population, present population is 51,277, and designed population is 52,129. That is after 25, 30 years and so on. Per capita rate of water supply is actually 55, not 5, 55 liters, LPCD. And the daily demand for water distribution is essentially multiplying the total population with the 55 liters multiplied by 365. Sorry, this is just the daily demand. And total number of households is 9,090. Therefore, one can come up with the annual demand of water, which is, this daily demand multiplied by 365. So that will be the total demand for water. One can convert that into kiloliter by dividing by 1,000. Okay. So then we can now calculate the operational cost of water delivery for kiloliter, which turns out to be 6.85. So the 6.85 is the operational cost of water delivery in this particular case at the MUS level. And whereas if you look at the current demand for water, which is basically looking at the current population and so on, so there is some differences. The total cost per kiloliter is 26 rupees 31 paisa, and therefore the share of the operational cost in the total cost is 26 rupees. So now the annual operation cost per household is 1,438 rupees, and annual total cost is 5,526 rupees. So total monthly cost per household is 460 rupees. This is the total cost, whereas operational cost is 119.86. Now, so if you are looking at the operational cost and comparing that with the water charges that is levied, so we can see the water charges levied per household is 90. So therefore, you can see that it is less than the monthly operational cost. So then one can also look at the IVDS, operation and maintenance cost. There is no fixed cost for the IVDS because that's already included in the MUS fixed cost. So we can look at the different operational cost for the IVDS. So these are watermen. There may or may not be the electricity charge because many times when you have a MUS system, you would like to locate the master balancing tank at a higher elevation, and so that gravity flow will be there to all the villages. In very rare cases, there may be need to pump water also to the village OHT, where there will be additional fixed cost. So based on that, one can calculate the monthly IVDS operational cost. So there are three villages, three gram panchayats for which we have actually calculated this. So you can see that the monthly IVDS operational cost is 17.87 in case of Gokarn. In Hoskere is 13.98, and Madanagiri it is 25.74. Monthly MES operational cost, as we discussed, is 119.86, which is same for all the Gram Panchayats, and monthly MES total cost per household is 460 rupees for all the Gram Panchayats, and MVDS, monthly IVDS total operational cost is therefore adding this operational cost at the MES level plus the operational cost at the village level. So that's what we get. It's 137.73, and it's in the quite similar range for all the other Gram Panchayats as well. So monthly IVDS total cost per household is 478, 474, and 486. And water charges levied is 100 rupees in case of Gokarn, and 80 rupees in case of Mandangiri. And they are actually less than the operational cost, the total operational cost. So therefore, there is a deficit that you can see in this case. We will also take an SPS example. So this is basically in Orissa. This is a Chhatrapur village. We will you can see this Google map of Chhatrapur village, and so there is a habitation called Kamapalli, and we can actually look at the costs. So the fixed cost here, different items of cost, and the total fixed cost is about 14,76,136. Design life is again 25 years, and annual investment cost is 59,000. Just dividing this by the 25 is what the annual investment cost. Then the operational cost is monthly waterman salary, 1,400. There are only 103 households, and therefore it is sort of a part-time employment for the waterman. Monthly electricity charge is 1,531, and monthly maintenance, if you look at 0.5% of the fixed cost, it's around 615 rupees. So then we can calculate the monthly operation and maintenance cost, which is 3,546. So summing it up, and monthly fixed cost is 9,558, which is actually annualized, so annual amortized cost. So that is 9,558. So monthly total cost is about 13,104. So now one can actually get into annual total cost, which is summation of the fixed cost and the annual fixed cost and the annual operational cost. So which is about 1,57,248. And this is what the annual operation and maintenance cost is. So the present population is 496. Design population is quite high, there were 857. And per capita rate of water supply is 70 liters here. So this is basically the Gram Vikas has decided that they will have 70 liters. And daily demand for daily demand of water is 59,990 liters. So one can calculate the annual demand for water, and we'll convert that into kiloliters as well. And then once we have this, we can calculate what is the total cost of water delivery for 1 kiloliter, and what is the operational cost per kiloliter. So here it works out to be quite small. It's 7 rupees per kiloliter and about 1.9 rupees per kiloliter. In this case. So based on the total fixed cost, operational cost, and annual water demand for an estimated future population, let's say 857, Actual cost per kiloliter worked out to be 7.18, and which is more than the current water charges, that is 5.5 per kiloliter. So if you consider the current actual population of 496, the fixed cost works out to be 9 rupees per kilometer, while operational cost is 3.36. So this is something you need to keep in mind, in the sense that, when you look at the DPR, there is one, the population figures are given both for the current as well as, expected population increase. And if you calculate, if you take into consideration of the expected increase, and in fact, for which the whole system is designed, then you may get a lower per capita, lower unit cost, but that may not be the correct, cost to use for the period, because this is basically we need to take into consideration of the actual population at that point of time, so which basically increases the cost, the unit cost. So in this case, it is the fixed cost goes up from 7.18 to 9.05. And the total cost here is actually 12.41. So if the VWSC decides to have ownership of infrastructure and its upgradation during the end of the current design period, then the revision of the monthly charges needs to consider the recovery of the total cost. So the total actual cost is 12.41, and the current charge is about 5.5. So you need to really revise it so that you reach this level. So maybe you need not do it immediately or in one step. That will be too drastic. So you may think about middle range first, and then after a year or two, you may want to change it to the full cost. So you may use some of these to really look at what will be an appropriate pricing strategy in order to make sure that the households are able to adjust to the the prices or the water or user charges that has been levied. So we also need to know the caveats of cost-based method. So far, we have been talking about cost-based method. So in the cost-based approach, the cost can rise due to various factors such as wastage of water, a large amount of non-revenue water may be there because you may be supplying it to various places like schools and Anganwadis and so on, and whether the water utilization there is judicious or not. It's also something to keep in mind, and apart from the wastages, in the sense that there may be breakage and other things due to which there may be wastage of water happening. Especially this is particularly important if, someone is drawing something, please, erase it. So lack of proper operations and maintenance, inefficiency in management of water supply system, that also could lead to higher cost. So, and if we are saying cost-based charges, then it's also important to make sure that the management of water supply system is efficient. So, so that's something to keep in mind, and so that we are able to manage the cost or bring down the cost as much as possible. Infrastructure design is also another thing that we have talked about, in yesterday's class, in the sense that if there is a overcapitalization, then it may be it's going to push up the cost. So we need to keep these things in mind while calculating the cost, of course, while actually managing the system. Of course, the infrastructure design, you can only change it only when you are at the very beginning of the infrastructure development. The design can be changed, but again, as someone has said, this should be, of course, technically feasible, and then only one should, alternative. If there are alternative designs are possible, then one should look at which one would actually give lower costs. So the other thing to keep in mind is we also have some clarity on the policies of the government, state, and central level. One thing to know is the 10% contribution is the only contribution that has to be made towards the investment cost. And the second one is, are there budget support available for operation and maintenance cost, like grants and so on, like the 15th Finance Commission grant and so on. And whether the state budget support is available for repair and replacement. What is the nature of funding support available to single village scheme, on technical help needed, training, skill development, capacity building, and so on. And whether the state budget will be available for replacement of assets at the end of the lifespan of those assets, and whether the state budget support will be available for water testing expenses incurred by the VWSC. Again, whether the electricity charges are, at a subsidized level or is taken care of the state budget. And also, whether something like, technological change, solar pumps instead of electrical pumps, whether the state is ready to, pay for that. So these are some clarifications that we need to have from the state and the central government, so that it's clear how one should actually calculate the costs. So this is what the background of cost calculation is. We have shown you some examples, and I will now demonstrate the I will demonstrate the actual worksheet, where one can actually input the data and get the output. So I hope this is visible.
So we can only see the slides.
Okay. Oh, the previous slides.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now I'll just see screen.
Yes, so we can see the template.
Okay. So this is the worksheet that we prepared to help calculating these various unit costs. For example, this is for the example that I have discussed already. This is the Kamapalli village, the worksheet. So essentially, you need to enter these one, present total population, design total population, lifespan, and per capita daily rate of water supply, total number of households, and water charges levied, either per kiloliter basis or per household basis. That needs to be entered. And the other thing that needs to be entered is the fixed cost components in these different fixed costs. And if there are any other fixed costs, one can actually add. And then we need to also enter the O&M expenses, the salaries of the water person, electricity charges, repair, maintenance, if there are. So then we'll get these outputs. Okay, so the formulas are there, and which actually calculates this output. So which is basically you will get, operating expenses per kiloliter. Let's say 3.36 per kiloliter. Total cost per kiloliter is 12.47. Annual operating cost per household is 413. And total annual cost per household, which is 1,534. monthly operational cost and monthly total cost. It's 127 and so on. It can also give you, given that you are charging so much and are able to collect so much money, whether there is a deficit or surplus over the operational expenditure as well as the total expenditure. So this is, so as if you input these cells, then you can automatically get the output, because these are simpler formulas that has been incorporated already. And we would like to share this with you, and you can actually input, your own systems data and get the output for that. And behind this, there is a sheet which actually calculates all this. This is the financial analysis sheet for the data that is given. So these are the data already input. So it sort of takes from the previous input sheet and calculates the total investment cost. And given the design and the it comes up with the the annualized investment cost or amortized value. And of course, so it calculates these other monthly expenditures, both operational expenditure as well as, of course, the total, the fixed expenditures. Then, it can, this is the annual total cost. And given that the population, the present population, design population is already brought in from the previous sheet. So it calculates the total demand for water and then calculates this, total cost of water delivery and the operational cost, as well as monthly operational cost per households and monthly total cost per households. So these figures are actually taken as output in the first sheet. So that's how it is linked, and therefore one can actually read that output from here. So one can also look at the surplus and deficit, again calculating the total operating cost and annual operating cost and total annual cost, and comparing it with how much is collected will give the surplus or deficit. Similarly, one can do it for the MUS. Again, we have two parts. One is the MUS part, the water procurement and treatment and the tanks and so on, storage. So then one can get this general information about this command area, that the population, design population, lifespan, and so on, as we also have seen the SBS system. And again, the IVDS, the individual IVDS. Let's say in our example, in Gokarna MVS, there were 3 Gram Panchayats we had considered. There are a total of 6. So, so that's each one of them is an IVDS. So let's say if you take one of them, this is what the present population is, 3,245, fairly large village. And design population, design total population, and there is some mistake here. Then the lifespan and interest rate, daily demand for water for the whole habitation, and so on. So you can get these figures, and then the fixed cost component, as we have these are different components. The pipeline, the electrical works and mechanical works and so on. And that will help in calculating total fixed cost. Then the O&M of MVS, again, we have these costs that we just discussed, and the O&M of IVDS. one of the villages, one of the Gram Panchayats. So this is what it is. And then, okay, so from here, you can get these outputs for NVS, which is like, per kiloliter operational cost, per kiloliter total cost, per household operational cost, per household total cost, and so on. And then one can also convert it into a monthly operational cost and monthly total cost. So these are then, this actually goes to these are the outputs that we get from the data that we have already supplied. Similarly, one can also get it for the IVDS. So IVDS operational cost is, which is basically total cost also, is 2 rupees 10 paisa per kiloliter. And the per household operational cost is 214. Per household total cost is 5,740 per annum. So monthly one can calculate, which is 17.87. Monthly total cost is 478.41, which is basically this one. This is actually MUS monthly total cost, and add to that the operational cost of the IVDS. So that will give you the total cost per household at the IVDS level. So similarly, one can also get the total, per kiloliter total operational cost and per household operational cost. So these are the output that you can get. You can also look at if you need any other kind of measures or the computation that can also be incorporated. So this also has a background analysis. This is another sheet which actually computes, and there are formulas in this. We still have to finalize this. There are some small, changes that we need to make. We will make these changes and send it to you. You can actually use it, and in case there are problems, or if you find it difficult to get the output and so on, just let us know, and we will be happy to help you, and maybe we can set up a time, maybe a common time to explain this sheet wherever you have problems in understanding. So we can do that. So it's good if you practice it, and just let us know if there are any issues that we need to sort it out. So any feedback on this also be very, very useful for us. So I will stop at this, and then you can actually, if there are any questions, I will try to answer, and then we can conclude.
Yes, sir. So we have one question. Sir, in the calculation part, have you considered the pump efficacy also? We have seen in the field that normally a pump runs at 58% efficacy.
Yeah, we have not considered that. I think that's a very good question. In fact, what is an optimal size is an important question to be, especially I think this comes in the, especially the solar. You may end up having a large capacity pump for a system where you don't need so much capacity. It could also be for others, I think even in, electric pumps and so on, we have seen large capacities, and therefore, the operational efficiency may not be great. But one thing to keep in mind is, these are all designed for, let's say, 25 years, and also, for a population growth of certain, percentage. In some cases, population may not be growing, but in other cases, as we have seen here, in Gokarn case, they didn't see, much of growth in population. More, that's probably correct. Whereas in case of Orissa, you can see almost about double the population after 25 years. So depending on this, the capacity that you create is also for the future. And therefore, sometimes, there may be overcapacity that has been already built in, and that might show that the, extent of usage may be much lower. So yeah, so that's a good question. And then, there is some amount of proper thinking that has to go in order to decide what is an appropriate capacity to create. Yeah. Any other questions?
So for calculation of the water demand, pump efficacy is very important as we are doing that in the field. That is a follow-up comment after you have
Sure,
asked
sure,
the
sure. I
question.
think that's very important. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We
We
will
don't
be very
have.
happy to know that, if you have some material and so on, please share it with us, and we can see whether there is a way to incorporate that in our worksheet as.
Sure, sir. I will do it. That is the response.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So we don't have any more questions or comments right now. I
Okay.
have shared a feedback link on the chat, and I
Okay.
kindly request all of you to fill that to let us know how the course was and how we can improve it further. Yes,
Yeah.
so you can conclude now.
Yeah.
There's
So
there's one more question, I think, from Pankaj Kumar Singh. In all the examples, cost recovery by service provider and utilities is insufficient to meet operational expenses, and tariff needs to be incremental to meet the upcoming demands on infra. So, how do we plan the pricing?
yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think it's always good to understand what the costs are, operational cost and total cost. At the very beginning itself, you can do some estimation in the beginning itself, and then sends this out to the people saying that, they need to be prepared for these costs and so on. Uh, Otherwise, what happens, you are in sort of dark and trying to figure out, what should be the charge. Uh, then you will start somewhere, which may not be really, able to recover the, sometimes even operational cost. In some of the villages that we have seen in Orissa, of course, it's Gram Vikas supported, and therefore we are seeing that, the operational cost recovery is very much there, but it's not full cost recovery. I do think in many of those cases, wherever the investments are very judicious and did not require a large setup to be done, I think full cost recovery is quite possible. Uh, of course, there may be other ways of looking at how we can charge full cost, and households can pay for it. If there are certain households which are very poor, not able to pay for it, either one can actually increase the number of NREGA days. If they are already meeting 100 days, make it 105 days. So, and use those 5 days for water related things, like, for example, water conservation, rainwater harvesting, check dams, and so on. So that may also be way to make sure that, while the water conservation is done, people are also ready to pay. Or there may be other budget items to pay for weaker sections and so on, or subsidize the weaker sections and so on, so that we are able to meet the cost. I think meeting cost is very important. Except that in the MVS case, as we have seen, if you take MVS cost also, then it becomes quite large cost. So there one has to see whether the operational costs can be met. Operational costs of IVDS and MUS together can be met through the water charges. So which I think is doable.
Yes, sir. We have a follow-up comment also.
Yeah.
Also, equity and justice, two important aspect while considering pricing.
Yeah, that's very true. So that is why we are saying that it should not be given to a private sector and so on, because private sector will charge much high and they would not care whether somebody gets water or not. So we need to look at how do we make sure that everybody gets water, and at the same time we are able to recover the cost. As I said, in some cases some subsidy may be required from the government side, weaker sections and so on. There may be some subsidy can be provided. The other thing is, of course, efficiently managing. Efficient management itself could reduce the cost, and that might make it a little bit more affordable. So there may be different, government programs and other things which might help, or we bring some convergence in order to make sure that weaker sections are still be able to pay for it. Like what I said, NREGA, or there are allocations for different categories, social categories, and so on. Maybe some of those money can come in, as well as there is also something like a 15th Finance Commission granted. Hopefully that will continue for the 16th Finance Commission also. And so those are things that you need to look at and see what best can be done in order to make the user charges affordable.
Yes, sir. We have another question, which is, I think, in lines with what we are discussing. If state budget is involved in supporting VWSC, then what is the incentive for VWSC to become financially viable?
No, I'm not saying state should completely support the VWSC in terms of financing. See, what I'm saying is there may be a weaker section, people within the habitation. They will not be able to pay when you charge full cost. So in which case, there may be other ways you may want to provide, like for example, NREGA number of days. If you increase, then they will be able to earn and pay. That's one option. The second option is, there may be some, budget allocation, which is there for, socially backward, category households. So one may be able to use that partly, not fully, in terms of, subsidizing, their water charges, in order to make sure that we are able to recover the cost. I think cost recovery is very important, and of course, the others should actually pay. Those who are able to pay must pay. That's very important.
Yes, sir. I think we just have comments saying that thank you and informative course. So you can wrap up and you can conclude.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to thank everybody for attending these 3 sessions. We would always like your comments, suggestions, and so on to improve upon this course. We would like to leave these, PPTs and of course the video recording on our website, and people can go through it. And let's say if you want to suggest it to anyone else, so they should, this will be ready within a week or so. And after that, they can actually go through the video recording as well as the PPTs, so that they can also, understand how the cost calculation should be done. And also, in case there are questions and so on calculations, we are also prepared to organize a half an hour or 1 hour time for people, who have questions at some time later. So we would very much like people to use our materials and make use of these sessions so that we understand, financial management, better and able to practice that in the field. So thanks again to everyone. So maybe we will meet sometime in the future, and bye.